Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are just quickly redoing Champion Select. We have, in fact, already gone through the overall Champion Select once thus far, but we did have to do a remake. Millenium's runes screwed up or some such similar thing. So for the sake of the people who are just joining us and for the sake of our VODs, we will be just quickly going over what has happened in the Champion Select and what picks were locked in. They have already repicked the same champions here. Nasus, Nautilus, Nasus, Nautilus, Nasus, yes. Nasus, Nautilus, Nidalee, going for the Niz. And we've got Fiddlesticks, Varus versus Thresh, Renekton, and Syndra, Evelynn, and Caitlyn.
Yeah, so really looking forward to this game to start up. Now, I'm not too sure whether either of these teams are... okay, so let me rephrase that. So I'm not sure whether either of these teams is stronger than the other one, because obviously both teams have won this game, have won a game so far, and both in a surprising, convincing fashion, if you will.
Yeah, it was really quite interesting, and it really did highlight the strengths of the two teams. Avalanche with their very defensive, objective-focused gameplay style, and Millenium with a much more snowbally, aggressive teamfight style. In the second game, they just weren't able to get those engages, so Millenium came out behind early on in the first game, took an advantage, and they snowballed it fairly hard. So we'll see what happens, but I feel a lot of this is going to be determined by that third game, early game. Regardless though, guys, we will be just going into a quick delay while we wait for the delay timer and for us to get into the game proper. This time, it shouldn't be very long. We hopefully shouldn't have to remake again. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Millenium are actually going to be meeting Avalanche there in the mid lane. Does look like no one was spotted. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is Millenium versus Avalanche Prime. This is the third of 3 games, 1-1 overall. We will be seeing who comes out the victor and hence who advances on to the next round. We don't actually know who they're going to be facing up against yet. I'm Spuddington, joined by Nature, and stuff is happening.
Yeah, Millenium trying to make a way in towards this Avalanche Prime jungle here. Doigby was hit by the piercing arrow in the process. Now they have got themselves that neat little ward in that red buff area. So they will just be backing out of there and starting off their own blue buff. So also for my part, welcome to the show. Welcome on the Rift. And it is just looking like Big Goose is just trying to throw some traps out here and there to maybe spot some junglers who start walking all over the place.
He might as well at this point. His mana regen with that Doran's Ring is going to be such that he's not going to effectively lose any mana from putting down traps, and they last a good long time. So that means he just gets that extra little bit of safety and map control, which you don't normally have if you start Doran's Ring. Now, I think probably the lane that's going to be most... Okay, so the most interesting thing on this map to me is going to be Evelynn, just on the fact that she has so much power to control the way that the game goes. But the second most interesting thing to my mind, even though it might be quite boring to watch, is going to be Anstrom versus Doigby in this top lane. Nasus versus Renekton is a lane that can swing either way, and it's so very much dependent on whether Doigby gets early ganks, because alone he is very unlikely to be able to shut Anstrom down.
Ooh, as we almost saw a hook connecting there in that bottom lane. Not quite yet, as you said. So Doigby is starting to push a little bit here. That might just be coming very, very interesting. Now Big Goose forced to lane here against Schleya, and he really doesn't want to get close at this point, because if he does, he's going to take a little bit too much harass for his liking, and Schleya has started to push those minions in towards Big Goose's turret, so he really can't farm, just similar to last game. Now Schleya might be in trouble as Dan is waiting in the wing, and he has got that dredge line. Schleya actually forced to flash very early into this game, and that might be trouble for him if Dan decides to come out here in towards his middle lane once again, and Schleya of course won't have any wards if he decides to do so fairly soon.
Yeah, there's not a lot to stop Nautilus from just walking around and going back in again, and that is why iFresh is there. He is expecting a gank soon, so he's going to stay in the area, and if not, he will try and go for the Wraith camp, I expect. And in fact, he's going to be meeting Dan here. He knows he's there. Will Syndra look to set this up?
Yeah, here he goes on towards Dan. Dan gets stunned up by the Scatter of the Weak. Now Fresh going in towards Dan. Will he be able to do this? Dan actually forced to flash out of there. Fresh taking so much damage, but Dan goes down to Schleya in the process, and Schleya actually picks up first blood for Millenium for the 3rd time in a row, actually.
Really good play there by both sides of that fight. Dan just maybe slightly overestimated his own health, could have flashed a little bit earlier and potentially survived as a result. However, that is a nice kill there going to iFresh. He will... Well, actually, no, it wasn't going to iFresh. It was by iFresh. By, you know, it's ownership. It's a strange concept. So anyway, we have got the continued pressure in the mid lane for Big Goose, and that double buff is going to make it 10 times worse.
Yeah, Big Goose is, as you said, going to have quite a problem here, as Schleya will just continue using those orbs of power to pressure Big Goose. Now, he might be in a little bit of trouble himself here, as Dan is waiting around the side, but he decides against ganking, because I'm not too sure, or he isn't too sure probably, he can actually take on a level 5 Schleya with his level 3 Nautilus, and that might be quite dangerous for him if he decided to do so.
It will indeed be so. In fact, Nautilus, one of his weaknesses is that until he really gets that shield up to maybe rank 4 or 5, he's just not a very reliable, well, fighter at all. I mean, he cannot really clear the jungle brilliantly. He suddenly becomes very sustained once he has got his shield up high enough, and he doesn't do that much damage either. So Wouldn't be surprised to see him have some issues. Actually, Doigby, by the way, tanking the tower to stop Anstrom's recall. I suspect he'll teleport back into sustain. But Nautilus won't be a huge threat in terms of fighting Evelyn. Not for a good long while.
Talking about Evelyn, Evelyn is right now heading towards that middle lane, or just walking across it, to be fair, as iFresh being might just be looking for a gank here on that bottom lane. Now, they do have a pink ward in their river, but they don't have a pink ward on the route iFresh is taking, so they might be in trouble here. That is if iFresh takes the route he's taking right now. Dude trying to land that hook onto Sliver. Fresh has shown that we do have that Fear of Fiddles coming in. We are taking so much damage. His Knight is sticking, and Fresh picks up another kill for his team. Gets out with a Dark Passage, as smooth as you like. And right now, Anstrom just doing a little bit of counter jungling, if you will. So once again, another kill here picked up for Millenium. Good start for them once again.
Yeah, he knows where Evelyn is, and he's just trying to get his Q up as fast as he possibly can right now. Schleyer actually steals away the Wraith there, gets herself a free bit of extra gold and experience, which is nice to have on a mid laner, obviously. But like I mentioned before, the worrying lane I feel for Millenium here, thus far they're doing well across the board, but is top lane.
Yeah, so we do have both ultimates getting used here in that top lane, both Fury of the Sands and the Dominus being exhausted there, as Doigby is looking to push this lane in towards Anstrom's turret. Anstrom is sitting on around 66 farm, or 66 stacks rather, for his Siphoning Strike. So he is doing fairly well for now, as iFresh is taking that second blue buff, or it is actually looking like he'll be gifting that over to Schleyer. And that is going to mean Schleyer will be quite the nuisance to Big Goose, who doesn't quite have the blue buff for himself yet. So we do have Mover now in that bottom lane, moving towards Nanook and Diode, as he is under that turret. Now he... I don't think he can actually take the both of them, so he will be forced to wait until Sliver arrives. Now Dan gifting over that blue buff to Big Goose. And Big Goose will now be able to spam out those javelins as fast as he can towards Schleyer, so he won't have any mana problems anymore, obviously. And that means Schleyer might just not... start pushing those minions as hard as he would with only the blue buff on himself.
Yes. Did I mute my microphone before? Because I have a feeling I might have done. I'm a bit of a stupid person when it comes to that. I do that fairly often, which is unfortunately one of my foibles. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, if there was an awkward silence. Regardless, though, I was going to say, I'm actually kind of impressed that it's only, well, actually, at the time, it was only 20. Now it's only 30, so it's getting bigger with time. Gap between Big Goose and Schleyer. Schleyer going in with the ult, not able to get enough damage, but iFresh is there.
Yeah, here comes iFresh with the Agony's Embrace. Big Goose might be in trouble here. iFresh trying to get out of there as fast as he can. Big Goose is now actually chasing iFresh, and iFresh might just be able to turn this around, but Big Goose just gives up on the chase, and iFresh gets out with a failed gank, but Schleyer might be able to do quite a lot of damage on that middle turret, and we also do have Doigby heading towards Big Goose, so Big Goose might be for the second time here in great danger. Here comes Doigby. Big Goose had been stunned up. Doigby using that flash. Actually, Big Goose now cleansing it out. He has got that ignite ticking him, but it won't be quite enough, as he has got that heal, of course. So Doigby will be tanking up those turrets, and now Schleyer will just be taking down this middle outer turret. Very first turret of the game, falling for Millenium.
The sheer amount of focus that Millenium are putting down on Big Goose, though, is just breathtaking. I mean, they really want him dead. Diode goes down in the bottom lane to a good gank there, but the fact that they are focusing so much effort on shutting him down, though, makes me wonder, are they letting Nasus farm too much? He's already on 99 bonus damage on his Q. He's not even putting points into the skill, and he's going to get really scary if they don't stop him soon. This is kind of the problem with Nasus. If you let him get beyond a certain point, he will not only 1v1 and split push with teleport, he will 2v1 quite happily and kill both of the people that come to stop him. That gets really nasty if he gets too farmed. We'll see what actually happens, but iFresh is in the area. He is aware of that though, so I expect he'll just play passive.
And meanwhile, in that bottom lane, we do actually have Sliver as well as Mover quite heavily pushing right there, as Nanook is desperately trying to defend his turret. Now Diode has joined him, so Mover and Sliver will be backing away here, I believe, and they will just be getting some items after they finished their golems. Now Nanook and Diode once again, and it is their turn to start showing the minions at this point, so Sliver and Mover won't be backing at all, and they will just be defending their turret. Now, the thing is, Nanook and Diode might be in some serious trouble here if Big Goose and Dan decide to go down there, because they really don't have any wards up until this point, as Diode just wards the dragon. So Big Goose now back in that middle lane. He doesn't have the turret anymore, so he's quite vulnerable to Evelyn ganks, but he does manage to put traps all around him to make sure Evelyn doesn't gank him without him noticing.
I'd just like to note, by the way, Nasus now has used to teleport for the second time for sustain. And I'd also like to make mention, for the people that may not have seen Anstrom play before, the double Doran's rings on Nasus, and incidentally Millenium are taking Dragon, but that is secondary compared to this minor build matter. Double Doran's rings on Nasus, he does it mostly for the early health, the early mana sustain, and because Spiritfire actually has a pretty decent AP ratio on it. His ultimate does not have a very good AP ratio on it, but it does have one, so it doesn't really matter either way from that front, but gives him that early edge that he likes to run. And I think Cher may need to watch himself.
Yeah, Slayer might be in trouble here, but iFresh is there to reinforce him. Dan gets stunned up. He takes a lot of damage. iFresh will be surely finishing him off there. Slayer picks up the kill. Now Big Goose might be in trouble. iFresh trying to chase him down here. Will Big Goose be biting the dust? No, he won't. He takes really heavy amounts of damage there, but he does manage to survive. And Slayer will now be looking to stun him up as he does so, and maybe finish him off, but he really doesn't have the mana for it at this point. But Diode is waiting around the side. He might just be able to finish this off. Now Big Goose heading towards Slayer. Diode actually tanking up the turret. Big Goose in a 1 versus 2 situation. Diode actually goes down to Goose. Brilliant spear right there as Big Goose actually successfully defends his turret. And now he might be trying to chase down Slayer here. Gets stunned up though. Uses the cleanse. Slayer might be in real trouble here. Big Goose with a double kill after finishing off Slayer. And he really shows why he is the mid laner for Avalanche Prime.
And I believe Diode expressed it best here by, well, okay, his quote is as to exactly what happened when he went for that dive there. So really good outplay basically there by Big Goose, keeping himself alive on no health, reading their intentions, dodging their skills, and just wrecking faces. And also in top lane, there was a bit of a dance party going on with the Renekton skin recall spam. Regardless though, Nasus is now kind of ignoring the tower and Doigby, and he's going to take it away.
Yeah, no problem at all for him now, as he is trying to do as much damage as he can as Doigby, but iFresh is here to reinforce him. Anstrom actually flashing over the wall. iFresh will flash just behind him. Anstrom taking so much damage, using that stifling strike on iFresh to get him away. And now both Doigby and Fresh are really low. Doigby forced to get out of there, but here is Big Goose. He will surely be taking down iFresh. Ooh, he doesn't quite manage to connect the javelin though, and he does manage to take him down in the end. Now Doigby will go down to, I believe it was Dan. Yes, it was Dan, but here is Slayer. Will he be able to make something happen? It isn't looking like it, and Slayer will have to take enough with nothing at all, and 2 kills go to Avalanche Prime.
Big Goose is hanging around. Dan is there. He's going for the heals. He's going to try and bait Slayer into going aggressive, and then he will punish.
Yeah, here comes Big Goose on towards Slayer, and we do have that wrath coming down on Slayer. No problem at all. Big Goose barely survives, but it isn't quite enough for Slayer to actually finish him off, and Slayer bites the dust as well.
Yeah, Big Goose is quite a good Nidalee player. I don't know if anyone noticed. Chain of Corruption bot lane.
Oh, actually, Chain of Corruption coming down bot lane. As you said, we do also have that fear on a nuke, but they will just be safe under their turret for now.
Yeah, just a little bit of a narrow thing there. So doesn't really matter overall. But I've got to say, Nasus is looking quite scary. 168 on his Q now and level 11. So he's hit another major power spike on that ultimate. One of the things people underestimate about Nasus is not just that he does tons of damage with his Q if he gets to farm it, but just the fact that even if he doesn't get to farm his Q, his ult still spits out magic damage everywhere, and it's really quite unsightly to watch. This also converts to AD, which his passive then converts to lifesteal, so it all fits together into one massive ball of death.
Yeah, that ball of death now coming towards Doigbeat. Doigbeat getting forced out of that turret as he was trying to take that down just as Anstrom did a couple of minutes ago. Now Doigbeat gets forced away as iFresh is heading towards that lane. But I don't think he'll actually be making something happen there anytime soon, as he'll just find out he was just counter jungled and his red buff was stolen, so he won't be picking that up. Now iFresh heading towards Anstrom. This might be dangerous for Anstrom. We do have dominance as well as the sands of the fear of the sands rather getting popped. Anstrom taking a lot of damage from that Agnes Embrace. iFresh heading in here. Will he be able to make something happen? iFresh taking so much damage, but it is not enough for Anstrom to make something happen, and he goes down. Now we do have on that bottom lane Mover as well as Dan and Sliver actually picking up a turret. So Nanook and Diode getting forced away. So great reaction to that gank in that top lane. And now Sleya might be in trouble. Dan heading towards Sleya here. Actually flashing Dredge line. He gets stunned up. Depth charge comes out. Sleya taking a lot of damage. Forced to flash. Piercing arrow comes out. And he goes down to Dan once again. Great play here from Avalanche Prime. And that might just be dangerous. Oh, actually Mover getting hooked in here by the death sentence. He goes down. Chain of Corruption gets popped, but it won't deter them from doing anything dangerous, or it will deter them from coming towards Avalanche Prime at this point. And Millenium will successfully defend their turret with 34 health.
Yeah, a little bit narrow there, and Avalanche probably could have gotten an extra auto attack off, but their nerf broke just a teensy bit too early there. Dragon is popping up in 16 seconds, and Avalanche are going to recall. This most likely will go to Millenium. They are continuing their trend, basically, of keeping very good control over Dragon, but they just never seem to quite keep up in the tower race. If not for that mid tower standing on such a tiny amount of health, it would already be a very, very big gap between the two of them. So scary stuff right now for Millenium, but they are doing okay overall. I just feel like as time goes by, unless iFresh gets even more fed or Caitlyn starts to pick up some kills, they're going to have a heck of a time dealing with Nasus, because he is getting tankier and tankier, and that makes him stronger and stronger in that 2-on-1, which he keeps getting caught in.
Yeah, Anstrom now getting a little bit of free farm here in that top lane as he starts hammering down on that turret in the top lane. Now we do have 3 members of Millenium grouping up in that tri-bush in the bottom lane. Oh, Anstrom actually getting a lot of damage from Sleya, who has joined the party. Anstrom going down to Sleya, but that might just mean Mover and the rest of his team will start to react here in that bottom lane. iFresh taking a lot of damage. Hill of arrows comes down. Death sentence not quite landing on Mover here. Mover now trying to catch on towards Nanook. Nanook gets feared. He actually uses the cleanse. Now the box comes down, but here is Dan with that dredge line. Dude taking a lot of damage. Here is Big Goose. Dude will surely not survive this, and he goes down to Big Goose.
Yeah, that is just a messy thing here. Doigbeat going to be taking a little bit of a scare there, but Millenium there taking back another tower. They will equalize that, but obviously you can't take anything from Avalanche for free. They always try and get something back immediately on towers, and that is what they are going to be doing right now, pushing in that mid lane but backing off. Varus going to be getting some free farm in the bottom lane. Nasa's going to be getting some free farm in the top lane and giving them a chance to give Big Boost his blue buff, which is there in spite of the fact it wasn't showing on my screen. All
right, so yeah, he just gets that blue buff donated over to him, as we do have a little bit of a lull in this game for now, as both teams really don't want to get caught at this point, nor do they want to engage in a big team fight, I believe, as both teams are not too sure whether they can actually win it. So for now, iFresh has been spotted out by that ward, as he will just back away after taking those golems. And meanwhile, that bottom lane, we do have actually Sliver taking a little bit of damage of that Nukes Piltover Peacemaker. And it is looking like Millenium are heading towards their very own blue buff with 4 members. As Nanook just heads back towards that bottom lane.
Yeah, I just want to talk in general now for a little bit, unless something kicks off at this blue buff, which it didn't. Dude got a spear in the back, but that's not going to kill him. Another one might, but not just one. So Nasus builds in general, there tends to be 2 schools of thought. One of them is my own personal favorite way of playing Nasus, which is to build like pure tank, like literally nothing but defensive stats and CDR. And hence just rely on farming your Q and your ult's base damage for your damage in general. Big Goose could be in trouble in the mid lane here. The other is to build more damage like Sunfire Cape, as is being done.
Yeah, iFish now joining the party. Ace in the hole comes out onto Big Goose, as well does Agnes Embrace. Big Goose getting chased out of here, but Slayer goes down to Sliver in the meantime. The Nuke taking a lot of damage as well. Dan will pick that one up. Now we do have Big Goose rejoining the safety of his party, as also have got Move there, who is now reinforcing Big Goose, forcing iFresh away. We do have Avalanche Prime picking up another turret in that middle lane, as Doigby gets recalled towards that, or gets summoned towards that middle turret, which will also fall very, very shortly. Now we do have Avalanche Prime actually hammering down on this inhibitor, which is very, very unfortunate for Millenium.
Yeah, they're starting to lose control of the map once again. This is kind of what we saw last game. They just were not able to keep up in terms of pushing, in terms of map control, in terms of, most specifically, towers. And even when they were getting fights, they weren't getting big advantages from them. As you can see right now, Anstrom is pretty tanky, and he's willing to just do that in order to take that away. And even if Millenium get a fight and get an ace here, they wouldn't actually be ahead as a result.
iFresh actually getting silenced, does manage to use that Dark Passage to get out of there. Now Avalanche Prime is starting to siege Millenium here a little bit, as they have just started grouping around this jungle. We do have Millenium actually grouping here in quite a sneaky spot, as they do decide to back away eventually and head towards the safety of their base. And getting trapped up by that Yordle Snap Trap. Oh, actually stun coming down on Dan here. I'm not sure whether that will start something off. It does, in fact, as Doigby gets stunned up by that Chain of Corruption. Here we do have that teleport of Anstorm coming in, and both teams just do back away at this point. But that surely isn't the end of this all, as almost we've got a Javelin connecting on the Slayer here, and Avalanche Prime continue sieging this turret. Now iFresh might be in trouble here. I'm not too sure whether he was actually spotted out. He is just waiting in the wing, and Avalanche Prime are surely but slowly moving towards him. But he is invisible, of course, so they won't be able to spot him out for now. I believe you've...
I muted my microphone. I am such a burk. Anyway, you talk. It's a fight.
Yeah, okay. iFresh now moving in towards Move here. iFresh just gets feared away, no problem at all for Avalanche Prime, and he backs away. So, fight seized for now, although Dan might be looking for something to happen here, as iFresh does manage to get out in the end.
Dear God, I'm a colossal moron. Anyway, Dan going to be heading down to this dragon area. They will be able to take this away very, very easily indeed. There is nothing really to contest it from Millenium. After that, most likely the recall, and then into their own pushes. They actually, for Avalanche at the moment, are lacking a little bit in terms of wards and map control. I'm somewhat surprised to not... Oh, he does have an Oracle, he just hasn't popped it yet on Move Air. So I would expect to see them start to take advantage of that inhibitor they've taken in the mid lane by taking serious map control now. They'll just try and slowly edge their way into Millenium's jungle. From there, they will take as much vision control as they can away from them. That then gives them the many more options in terms of their roaming around. They're swapping between lanes and trying to put the pressure on Millenium. That, in turn, could potentially snowball into more towers. Question, and potentially even a Baron, if they can just clear that out, is kind of dancing around the wall. I don't really know what's going on there, but maybe he was afraid in case he was going to get stunned over the wall by Cinder and blown up. But regardless, they definitely have an advantage right now, Ava, and they need to try and take advantage of it. That inhibitor will probably respawn before too long.
It sure will. Now we do have Dan and Big Goose actually making a little bit of a flanking maneuver here over towards Millenium. Now Millenium are hiding here on that river ramp themselves. Now they have started out on towards Ansem. Ansem actually gets hooked in, he gets flayed back, he gets a lot of damage on him because of the unleashed power, and he goes down. Now we do have that chain of corruption hitting on towards Ziud, as well as the piercing arrow, which will deter his team from going any further. Now iFresh might be in trouble here as Mover with the Oracle is trying to chase him. Now Doigby going very, very deep onto a Sliver. He gets stunned up, he gets feared, he uses the Dominus, he actually flashes for it as iFresh is trying to chase down Mover. In the meantime, we do have that Ace in the Hole coming out. It won't be quite enough, but iFresh might just be able to make something happen here. He does get feared away, and in the meantime, we do have actually Big Goose as fast as he can trying to take down this inhibitor. We do have Nanook once again trying to go for Sliver. He goes down in the process. iFresh gets feared. Doigby trying to desperately finish it off. He does manage to do so as Mover channels that Crowstorm. He goes down to Doigby, or iFresh rather. Double kill for iFresh. But was it worth it? Because Big Goose did manage to actually take an inhibitor in the process.
Definitely not. Essentially, Big Goose there is doing what Avalanche do really, really well in team fights. They play a kiting game, they kite you backwards, and they split push, and they try and take objectives. And actually, Big Goose is chasing after Doigby. He can't see him right now, but he will see him once he goes past Baron. He's got Cougar form, he's got blue buff. He can chase this down. It'll take him a while, and Doigby most likely is just going to want to clear waves. He's hit a trap. He's probably going to hit a javelin very soon.
Yeah, Big Goose using that pounce to get over the walls, and he is closing in very, very fast. Doigby might be in real trouble here. Javelin doesn't quite connect. The second trap does, however. Now Schleia is here to help him. Ooh, the Javelin actually getting blocked out by Schleia right there. A little bit of luck maybe, or maybe it was just pure skill. As right now they do back away towards their base, and Doigby will be healing up.
As to whether it was luck or skill, that really depends which team you're on. So Evelyn going to be getting there and farming that out. But yeah, this is probably a free Baron, actually, thinking about it, because Big Goose is right there. Amstram is very, very good at taking Barons. Millennium may rush there, but by the time they get there, it's going to be gone. So free Baron for Avalanche. The inhibitor in middle is open and has respawned, so most likely that's where they're going to want to go. If they could catch Doigby, that would just be the cherry on the cake. And that is not a good situation for Doigby. They could maybe try and catch Nid, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, so Millennium now forced in towards a defensive position as Avalanche will now start to siege them continuously, because they do have that Baron buff, of course. Millennium just waiting in that brush a little bit. Maybe they can catch someone out here. They are heading in towards the back here. They might make something happen. Chain of Corruption does land, as well does the depth charge. iFresh might be in trouble. He goes down for a shutdown on him. He goes down second. Now we do have also Anstrom and Dan in all kinds of trouble, but Schleia is going down in the process. Nanook looking for a kill on Dan here. Will he be able to do something here? He is withered, so he is forced to decline his attacks, and he will be just backing away.
Sorry, I was just noticing Big Goose.
Oh yeah, Big Goose now coming around the back here, as he will be looking to finish off Nanook, perhaps, as we do have Dan going down. Shut down on him. Big Goose will be getting chased down here, but he is a little bit too fast, as Anstrom is going to maybe finish off this inhibitor, but it isn't really looking like it.
They're juggling them between the two inhibitors at the moment. Big Goose is still there and still pushing, but he might get caught out by iFresh here. No CC though. Can he chase him down?
Yeah, here comes iFresh on towards Big Goose. Big Goose really, really in a dangerous situation. Ace in the Hole comes out, and he will surely go down to iFresh. iFresh getting the shutdown bounty, and he will be happy with that. But then again, there's one inhibitor down, and they are really, really in an awkward position here. But I do believe Anstrom is the only remaining member on the Avalanche Prime team with a Baron buff.
Yeah, I think what we can say though is that Avalanche have an almost demented obsession with destroying buildings. You could probably draw a parallel to the most recently released champion. They are just absolutely determined to take objectives, sometimes to their cost. Most of the time it works out for them. Most of the time gives them map position, gives them map pressure, gives them the advantage. But I think maybe the fact that Big Goose was so determined to take that bottom tower did kind of cost them a bit in terms of their actual fight potential there. And Millenium are still in this game. They aren't that far behind on gold. All it would take is a couple of fights where they actually kill the majority of Avalanche, and they could easily turn the objective situation around. They appear, from what I've seen, to genuinely have the advantage in these team fights still.
Yeah, so Millenium right now, as is Avalanche Prime, in a little bit of a lull, but it seems like Avalanche Prime are moving in towards iFresh, and he actually gets feared up. Here comes Dan with a depth charge. iFresh getting caught out. This is disastrous for Millenium, and he isn't dead quite yet, so he might actually make an escape here. Oh wow, I was not expecting that. iFresh actually making an escape with a perfect flash. He will be recalling as fast as he can. That does open the window for Avalanche Prime to start moving in here as fast as they can themselves, and they will start to siege this inhibitor. Anstrom using that wither on Doigby, as here comes Slayer, as does iFresh. And he doesn't quite manage to connect the piercing arrow for now, but they will just start to continue this siege. The inhibitor in the top lane has respawned, so Avalanche Prime really don't have the the super minions anymore, except for those two waves who are hammering on the inhibitor for now. So Avalanche Prime once again still trying to take this inhibitor down. Anstrom getting forced away from it, taking a little bit too much damage of the nukes, as Avalanche Prime really aren't making anything happen so far. We really want to see anything here. Oh, iFresh got caught out by the ward. We do have Avalanche Prime backing away, and iFresh really doesn't want to get caught here, and he doesn't know he's standing on... he has to know he's standing on ward, because he does see Avalanche Prime actually backing away every time he moves past it.
Avalanche have now managed to take that inhibitor, and they are actually going to catch iFresh. No way out for him. That gives them the advantage. They can now go for that next inhibitor. That whole time, though, they were playing a game of let's not get stunned by Syndra. So long as that doesn't happen, so long as they don't get death sentenced on a squishy, they're fine. They can continue to do this. And in fact, now I think they're going to take all three inhibitors, because that minion pressure up top did take a decent chunk out of that. The nuke losing half his health for fun there. But as long as they avoid getting blown up now, they surely have this game. They just need to wait for the minions.
Yeah, so Avalanche Prime might just be one of the semi-finalists for now. Ooh, Big Goose taking quite a lot of damage. He does manage to land a spear though. Oh, now Nuke almost going down to that piercing arrow, as we do have once again a piercing arrow landing on Slayer. Slayer goes down to Sliver now. Sliver might be looking for a second kill here. Will he make it happen on Doigby? Doigby taking a lot of damage, goes down to Big Goose. Here comes Agni's Embrace of iFresh. iFresh taking a lot of damage. Double kill here for Sliver, and they might just be looking to finish off this game. First Nexus turret has fallen. GG's coming out here. Avalanche Prime is looking to be your very first semi-finalist for the Challenger Series number 15.
That is indeed going to be the end of a really interesting series overall. Both teams coming out with some nice team comps, nice strategies, but in the end, Avalanche's ability to control the map is what won them the day. I don't know if you would agree with me when I say this, Nature, but I have to say, I feel like Millenium, honestly, as individuals, played better, but Avalanche had the teamwork and the map pressure and the map control.
That's going to be a hard call for me, but I think I'd agree on you with that, but it was a close call.
Yeah. Regardless, though, guys, both teams have acquitted themselves very, very well in this game, and I believe we are actually slightly overdue, so we will probably have the next game up, which will be a different best-of-3 series up very, very soon.